welcome to the stage. Already here, Claire Cryer from Outform to discuss the new retail physics. Thank you.
I didn't get any walking music. I think it would have to be Let's Get Physical with Olivia Newton-John. And the reason for that is I'm going to have quite a different conversation to everything that I've heard thus far today. I've learned a lot today. It's really interesting. And I'll tell you a tiny little bit about Outform in a second, but the new retail physics, right? So I'm going to talk about the store. And One Size is one of the brands that we work with, the SaaS, the socials, but also the store. Some of the people in the room I know, many I don't. So just a couple of words maybe about Outform, who we are, what we do. We design, engineer, manufacture, install and maintain beauty fixtures in all of our wonderful retailers, many of whom have seen in Boots, in Space UK, in Sephora, in Douglas, in Ulta, so we're a global business, but based out of EMEA. And I guess, some of the pictures here show you the spectrum of the work that we champion, which is taking a brand like Rare Beauty or One Size or Wonderskin from earlier on, another brand that we work with, and creating that visual merchandising playbook. So everything that you're going to be, from the materials to the tone of voice to the embracing the principles of sacrifice that you must do because every brand wants to say too much, and figuring out, which is really the context of this discussion today, what's the point of a store when we could buy everything we ever wanted online, and what role should that store play within this beautiful, I have Johnny's chart, the little journey and the bouncing ball go through, absolutely agree. We're very lucky to work with, we're about 25 years old, there's probably not a brand that we haven't worked with at some point over time. A lot of the brands that we've had the privilege to work with are the big American brands launching like Rhode and Merit and rolling them across from North America into the UK and into Europe. But also, most importantly, we work really closely with the retailers. We'd be nothing without them, right? So I've been scanning the presentations thus far to see who's going to say how many sales still take place in store, right? So I think, Johnny, you said 40% were online from your presentation. I would say we see somewhere between sort of 40 and 60% still in store. So it's a huge amount of the business that we make and want to do. So I guess direct to consumer, Amazon Beauty, TikTok Shop, all the things we're seeing are thriving and well represented on the agenda today, as they should be, representing such a large percentage of sales, obviously depending on the brand or depending on the category. And as this picture implies, the shopper is very happy to blend the lines and blur those lines for us. So today I'm going to dip in and out a little bit of some quant research and qual that we layer on top of that to share the insights on what the shopper really wants from this future beauty in real life. So they are that, right? Informed and intentional. So when you sit and have 6 presentations before you, you go, oh, they're not going to contradict anybody. And actually, I think we're very much in alignment, right? So they don't come in browsing on a whim. They arrive informed, they arrive intentional, and increasingly, they also arrive convinced or already skeptical. So I think if we reflect back on how we're showing up within our socials, the moment of the store enables us to change that skepticism. The slightly wonky photo I have up here is I took this in Sephora the other day, so we brought Rhode to the UK, and they have like crash barriers up in the store to manage the queue, and I looked at it, and to be honest with you, there wasn't a huge queue there, so I didn't know if this was more intentional creation of hype, if you will, but the fact that so in North America, the launch of that brand, Sephora took $15 million in the first day of trading, which is the biggest day of trading they've ever had in their entire history. So when we bring these brands in, we really need to mobilize every aspect of the customer journey behind it because those people knocking on Sephora's door weren't obviously knocking because we've done the job right in terms of the rest of the mix and creating a beautiful brand, beautiful products, and deep authenticity in terms of how it shows up in social. So I'm going to take just a quick look, a little video here, a quick look at beauty retail, some shameless plugging of our own work, but also some of the things that we see today. Represent. The first is simple productivity, right? Every square centimetre of space that you have on a gondola end or a countertop unit has to return its investment. It has to be highly productive, and that means the return on the sales. You saw the road draw being pushed out and the amount of engineering prowess that goes into making sure that those things are just beautiful as they must be if you're going to both represent the brand in the right way, but also deal with the sheer volume of pulls, right? The sheer volume of people attacking those fixtures. So the productivity piece is really important. Mustn't fall off. I've put the goods piece up here. So we relaunched Morphe, and I love this two-day piece because again we do a lot of trial and understanding what is going to work and what is going to, from the data, how do we make sure that we're doing the best thing possible. So here in one bay, we've got a whole bay of brushes, because that's what Morphe was always known for, right? But it's still quite a brave choice to give over that much space to it, but it is delivering on the productivity. In the middle, ruthlessness in terms of the edit, right? So what are you going to put in your stores? Maybe it's easier to have an endless inventory when you're shopping online. Probably is easy to have, but probably still difficult to shop. So we're working really hard to make those edits absolutely ruthlessly planned, and also bringing in regular newness and more integrating digital into the fixture. As Outform, our heritage is in consumer electronics, so we work with Apple and Amazon and Samsung, and we work in fashion, where you're seeing a lot more of the sort of store takeovers. Our CEO is the founder of Future Stores, which is the flagship pop-up on Oxford Street. So we are, I suppose, industry leader when it comes to looking at how do we think about integrating technology at the right moment. What's the use case? What's the need that we're actually serving and creating? I think I probably should have pressed go on that. We also then, our Future Stores environment is a place where we host TikTok shops. That was Kansan Studios that took over Future Stores for I think it was a 14-hour marathon or something like that. And that young lady there was just somebody who'd come into the store to participate, so she's getting her moment in the sun. So in the new retail physics, as we have described it, the store's primary purpose is to convince and satisfy an exploration mission. I already know roughly what I want. I know the brands that inspire me. I know what I'm intending to buy, but I may well have a short list and a choice. We've also got to make sure that we inspire a little along the way, right? So the store is no longer just that point of sale, but it's a confidence engine, right? We've talked about trial, we've talked about all the things that I see and experience in my social feeds. So many shoppers of all generations are still taking that step into the physical store, be it Boots, be it Space NK, be it Sephora, and actually, drawing on their own hands or spraying themselves with the fragrance. Nothing replaces that in real life moment, which is also a place of community. So space isn't measured so much in square meters, but in clarity, credibility, and conversion. Because if shoppers are coming with a purpose, and if trial is really what they're wanting to achieve when we're there, then we must make sure that friction doesn't drive them away. So I'm going to touch briefly on each of these 6 physics nodes, and I will go through them one by one. So firstly, the store exists to create confidence. So the shopper is moving fluidly between online and in-store. We do, as I say, the quant study that we do asks shoppers what do they want and what do they not want from the shopping experiences that they have. And we're seeing actually almost an anomaly in the UK in that is by far the greatest marketplace where we expect to be able to drift seamlessly between in-store and online. And that means from the shopper's perspective that they expect us to know them and anticipate their needs. And there's still a lot of gaps, right, within that. So mission beats meandering. So another one of the brands that we work on is Vive and Jamie Genevieve, just a baby, but amazing character, Glaswegian makeup artist, super authentic. Worked the counters before lockdown, started making YouTube videos with makeup tutorials, and just established this phenomenal following, and then launched a brand. And not more than 5 years later, we're creating her gondola to go into Space NK, and she's commanding many millions to be able to expand that brand out. The social following that she has, and the ability to then have this as a mission-based piece. I'm not meandering, I need to find this brand, and I need to be able to find a way of translating the cues that are the familiar parts of Jamie and making that into a physical store. So she had a fixture before we developed this one, and she didn't see herself in it, right? It didn't represent her, and therefore the shopper was also passing it by and not seeing it when they would go in for a mission. So what we do is we look at the materials, we look at Jamie and her beautiful hands, and she wears a lot of jewellery, she has a lot of tattoos, and we create all of that actually lives within the fixture too. Oh, I went too far. I'm so sorry. So, although we are the majority mission focused, we also do have a small wild card here, which is where we look at our data. Where do you get most beauty inspiration from? In the UK, we're seeing 49% online and 51% getting their inspiration from in-store. So more are getting it from in-store, but really if you look where we have the UK, then we have US, Germany and France, interestingly, the store is the smaller when you look at the other markets, which I think is actually probably driven by the fact in the last 2 years, maybe a little bit more, the UK beauty retailing landscape is just on fire, right? It's brilliant. There's so many new stores opening. Our office is in Margaret Street, just in Fitzrovia, near the new Space NK, the queues around the doors, Boots in Battersea, all these must-visit type of destinations. But it is, again, interesting. There's an anomaly there. Equally, it could be that everybody in the room is doing amazing digital marketing and creating much love. So, I mean, we know this, right? Go into a store to try stuff, to have that moment of trial. And nothing beats that, right? In terms of the collaboration, the community that you're having, either bringing friends along and doing that together. The touch and trial is the primary experience. And we're looking, of course, 78% of shoppers are more likely to try a product, to buy a product if they try it first. So the store is a node, not a destination. Johnny's map, moving us all around, all of the different things. So we're thinking really hard now about what is it that the store needs to do for us. An example here, so Michael and Marina here earlier today, we helped them make their very first moment in physical retail. That's hugely successful direct-to-consumer brand from known entrepreneurs, selling, I don't know, I think they were selling a lip stain every second on Amazon or something like that. So loads of sales. Why do you go to a store? And really, I had to test this on Michael when I saw him earlier. I said, I'm going to say something that I think you said. which was we need the opportunity to be able to meet our customer, and we need the opportunity to meet the customers who aren't interested in interacting with us in the social channels that we are in. So this was an activation of Boots and Battersea, and it had a sort of full backdrop where you could create your own moment. Marina is in her purple dress, always present, so you're actually having a really amazing sort of money can't buy experience of meet the founder and have her or one of the team put the lip stain on me and create a moment where in itself becomes a shareable moment that we run full circle. So, you know, in sort of AI-driven world, in an automated world, where human experience, empathy, and confidence become the greatest differentiators, it's worth mentioning the beauty advisor, right? So training and empowerment matter just as much to us as the space and the fixture. We did a very small, intimate session with retailers with CDW recently on the principle of storytelling, and it's why I quoted Arif here, which actually was from Forbes in the first place, but you know, brands that deliver superior customer experience are bringing in 5.7 times more revenue than competitors that lag in experience quality. And again, you know, when I go into a Space NK or a Sephora or a Boots, more and more I do want the interaction with the team to help me make my choices. So stores are now media channels. Refi is another brand that we work on. This is just a little snap that we took in the store-in-store environment that we built with Jess, who's actually using their store environment as a place to drive that authentic engagement. So, you know, as simple as running a competition to say thank you to our community, you know, you could win a consultation directly with Jess in the store-in-store environment in Selfridges in this instance. And another shameless plug, a little video that shows some of the work that we do and how she shows up with it. Refi and Wonderskin are probably the two that, because DTC came first, right? They're really comfortable with using the store's platform to do other things, to do meet the customer, to be more present within that. And Refi, probably up to 50% of their sales are now through wholesale, so through the Selfridges and Sephora contracts that we have. So one final aspect of this, because this is about future beauty, right? So the Future Beauty Summit, I wanted to talk really up front about bricks and mortar. However, Outform, we integrate digital into so many of the experiences, tables, etc. that we build. And this is the statement that came back, beautifully drawn out by Hannah upstairs from all of the data that we have. If we draw insight from that, is digital is welcome if it's worth it, right? First-party data is just so the most valuable thing we will ever have, right? Because that is totally knowing me and anticipating my needs. And when we look at what that means is that, you know, in the research we did, 56% of UK shoppers were finding digital experiences appealing, but it was down significantly. So it means that we've done a thing called stick a screen on it quite often without actually having a really clear view of what the customer journey is and what the customer experience needs to be as a consequence. And we want screens, but we want them almost to do so much of the stuff that we've been talking about today, right? Not just to play the beautiful advertising content, but actually show you tutorials and ingredient breakdowns and quizzes and the likes. So I think there's opportunities for brands in the room to collaborate with your retailers and figure out how to give a great customer experience, whilst at the same time, remembering my crowd barriers from Rhode, making sure that that doesn't get in the way of trade and trading. So we think digital experiences must be purposeful, or they're just taking up space, right? So the majority are still going to see more if it's a digital signage. So 66% of shoppers feel digital signage gets their attention more, right? If you've got my attention, you need to be saying something that's valuable and interesting to me. I know it's really difficult to figure out who's in charge of filling retail media screens. But again, it's something that certainly from our side of the business, we've started to have much bigger involvement in that because we're talking from the brand and the shopper's perspective as opposed to it being retail media and just, sending advertising. We expect, ideally, digital screens to be interactive. So I'm seeing a lot of good use cases. We do a little bit of collaboration with brands like Renewed, who do amazing AI. So thinking about how do we bring some of those things into the store environment in the longer term so that there's an ability to genuinely join up that single customer view and be that person in the store and online. I haven't been paying attention to my timings at all, even though I'm okay. So when we look at if we want 74% want digital to be interactive, what do we actually want the content to be? And we started, and this is a very light touch on it. If you want more details, do get in touch and we can do a deeper dive on this. But really what shoppers are looking for from the in-store perspective in digital is product comparison, features and benefits, demo videos, customer reviews. Customer reviews and that validation of people like me is a completely unused and underrepresented part of the store journey right now. It's also tricky, right? So it's not something that you can just stick a screen on the side. I have a little anecdote that I've talked about before. She's going to cut me. When I go into the Mac store, which I loved, I was looking at foundation and I said, I'm just going to use the virtual try-on. And the beauty advisor was like, oh, you don't need to look at that, work with me. And it dawned on me that we hadn't done that training piece to actually make the beauty advisor feel that that piece of technology belonged to them and belonged to them as part of their clienteling process. So as we do integrate technology into our real stores, we do need to make sure that the beauty advisors are on side and they welcome it. And the only thing I'll draw out here is that everybody uses their phone in store, totally. The percentage is quite low, but when you look at the different ages, Gen Z, millennial, 80s%, so we all have a mobile phone in our hands in those age groups. And again, that's your personal screen, and there's so much more we can do with that. So I'm going to close. We talk, I do it myself, I have an iPad, a laptop and 2 phones over there. I live online, couldn't survive without it. But we fall in love in store. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any questions, or I've probably run out of time. You say there's a question. Tash has a question. Would you like to?
Hello. You know that interactive store you just played a video of with the live streaming? Is that happening in the UK yet? And do you think that's going to become commonplace?
Well, so that specific store is called Future Stores. It is, in a couple of words, it describes itself as your pop-up flagship. So it is a super high-tech space. It's beside the Tottenham Court Road Elizabeth Line tube station in Oxford Street. So you can have it tomorrow, right? Now, at the moment, it's launching Renault 5 electric cars, or Renault 4, I can't remember. So it is a pop-up space, right? But it's fully LED'd, and the technology is off the scale in terms of being able to measure who's walking by. It's the busiest tube station in London now. Who's coming in? It is a media, because it's billboards, right? They're digital billboards, but it is a place of activation and a place of transaction. And also, you can have your trade partners come in there, you can run parties. So we use that space is there. We did the Kanzen piece of work as a test, really, and it was phenomenally successful for the brands in terms of what they're driving. Mostly your studio is probably tucked away somewhere quiet. I think it's really...
Marks and Spencer's become like that?
Wow. Have you been into the Pantheon new store?
No.
It's really beautiful, but it's so quiet. So no, I don't think they will. but I think they want to, right? Because everybody wants that feeling of, you know, who hasn't said authenticity, right? You want that moment of, and when we think about what to do in the store, we sort of ask ourselves the question, what do we have to do to make somebody get up from their chair and go? And you know, that requires the likes of M&S probably to do things like that are visit worthy.